All right, so third part of our back to the basics sequence. Uh, let's keep on going down the list. Nope, I broke something. Hang on. There we go. Okay, so back to the list. Let's talk about Boolean logic a little bit. So I think that the basics of this, people have consistently been doing pretty good. It's when you start jamming stuff together that I think people have a hard time. So let's pull an example from, yeah, let's do this one. No, I don't want to do any of these things. All right, so I don't know why that was what was on my clipboard, but that's pretty funny. All right, let's try that again. God, why is it still that? There we go. Okay, so this is like a little bit more like what we do for like our figuring out like an if statement or something like that. So the way that you do these is you're going to take some part of it and you break it into smaller pieces. So like one and null. Null is a falsy value. Actually, let's do this. I'm going to do different colors. Truthy values I'm going to do in green. Falsy values I'm going to do in red. And those are the values. So now we need to look at the expressions. So for example, this not is going to take the truthy value because all objects are truthy. And it's going to flip it around. So that makes this whole thing false. That's true. And then if we evaluate this, both of these need to be truthy for that to evaluate to true. Since that's not the case, the whole thing evaluates to false. That is going to evaluate to true because it's a string that isn't empty. So then our next set of parentheses is over here. And so we're saying it is true or false. Well, or just needs one of those to be true. So that makes this entire thing true. Then you're looking at false or true. Only one of those needs to be true for the whole thing to be true. So the whole thing is true. That's how we simplify Boolean expressions. Who can remind me what the truthy and falsy values are? Volunteer.
So,
Sean.
no, Matt, please go ahead. All right. Falsy values are going to be anything that falls into the category of false. This is going to be 0 or null, or as you had said, empty strings. Now, anything that doesn't fall into the category of falsy is by default truth or truthy.
Correct. Great answer. Matt, can you give me some more falsy values?
Um, 0,
Got it.
null,
Got it.
undefined,
There we go. What else?
nan,
Anything else?
actual false.
There we go. Cool. So these are our falsy values. So a falsy value is a value that coerces to false. So if you try to make any of these Booleans, they become false, including false. So like if I do bang bang 0, that's false. If I do bang bang null, that's false. Bang bang empty string, false. Bang bang undefined, false. Bang bang nan, false. Bang bang false, false. All of those are falsy. Truthy is everything else. So that is every number that isn't 0. Null and undefined are the only values for those types. Any string that isn't empty. Any number that isn't nan or 0. And true. Also, every object, including arrays, functions, all of those are all truthy. Questions about the idea of Boolean expressions?
I just have one question about what you just drew up there. So isn't the double exclamation point not? So wouldn't it be like not 0, which would then be truth?
100%. And that's why there's 2 of them.
Oh, because it's saying not 0.
Exactly.
Okay. Okay.
Not 0, not null, not string. That's why the coercion works. Other questions about Boolean expressions? So in code, like almost all the time, we're doing stuff like testing for the presence of something. If this string exists, do this. If the string doesn't exist, then it's presumably an empty string, so it would not happen. Or it's something like, does this object property equal this string? Is this number less than 4? That's when we use these Boolean expressions. And in the third unit, we're going to learn some cool tricks for working with these called short circuiting. But no need to worry about that just yet. Cool. Other questions about conditionals? This one's probably bit you already. The assignment operator and the comparison operator are not the same thing. Because statements actually do evaluate to something. They all evaluate to undefined. So that's why if you, in your console, if you do const a equals 1, that's why it comes back as undefined. Because it's a statement. Statements evaluate to undefined. Technically makes them expressions, but I don't want to make that too confusing. But yeah, that's going to that's going to evaluate to undefined. So that'll never run. All right, onward. Let's talk about functions. So a function and a program are like the only difference is perspective. Like you could consider a function a program. You could consider a program a function. They're really the same thing. Function takes inputs, turns them into outputs. That's exactly what a program does. They're the same thing. Functions come from math. So we say f of x equals mx plus b. So this is like the equation for a line. You could also write that as function that takes in x returns x times m plus b. And so maybe m is 2 and b is 3. So you, if you plug numbers into this, like say x is 5. All right, 5 times 2, so that's 10 plus 3. That means, so that's 10 plus 2 is 13. So 5 is 13. If instead I did that with 1, let's say like 1, 1, so that's 2 plus 3. So that's 5. 1 is 5. I did 3. 3 times 2, so 6, plus 3 is 9. Input, output. If I plotted that on a graph, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So inputs go down on the bottom. That would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1 is 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 3 is 9. So that was 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's like there. 5 is 13. That was like here. Hey, what do you know? Draw a line through it. That's what a function is. Takes inputs, turns them into outputs. We talked about inputs and outputs at the beginning of the day. That's what a system is. Something that takes inputs, turns them into outputs. And what's really powerful about this idea is that it doesn't have to be numbers. It could be strings, could be objects, could be arrays of objects, could be a whole bunch of different things. But that's what a function is, something that takes any number of things in and then returns something. Questions about the idea of functions?
So in the past, you've been very adamant about making sure that we don't do a function that's going to just return whatever parameter we put into it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just curious if you could maybe re-elaborate on
Totally.
that.
So the thing that I see people do a lot looks like this. See practice. still in reading code. So the thing that I see people do a lot is they make a function, takes in a number, and then they'll save that and then just return it. That sucks. Instead, just return the expression. So this takes this expression, saves it in a variable, and then immediately returns it. Anytime you're doing that, skip the step where you're saving it in a variable first. Just return it. That's all that is.
Cool. Excellent.
Other questions about functions?
I was trying the other day to create a function with a list of objects with their
Okay.
keys and values.
Okay.
Couldn't never get it to work.
So it was a function that takes in keys and values?
Yeah, I did a list of keys and values, and I don't know what I did wrong. I think it has something to do with the fact that I was trying to put an object in a function, a list of objects, because I wanted, it's for my project, my production website. I was doing like multiple variations of a villager, say like their species, their gender, their date of birth, and I could never get it to work.
So hard to say without looking at it, but
I did like a const, and then I did an object, and I put like, like gender, and then,
okay.
I tried to pair it up with where it is in the API.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did, species did the same thing, trying to pair it up with wherever it is in the API. And then I tried to put it into a function. That just didn't work for me.
Okay, so again, impossible to say without looking at it, but
Okay.
you can totally pass objects in. They're just values. So it could be something like print age,
Mm-hmm.
takes in some animal, and then console logs some animal.age. And then to call it, you would do print age, pass in the animal.
Now, how would that work? I mean, because if you're doing some age in the print age, this is where I'm having a problem, because I understand that you're printing age in some animal, but how do you get the array of or I guess it's just a list of objects into print age just by putting it there on line 11?
Great question. So let's say I had a few of these. Okay, so I have these three things. I could do print age cow, print age sheep, print age armadillo. Anytime you see that much repetition, though, that should like set off an alarm bell in your head and go, huh, that's a lot of repetition. What tools do I have at my disposal for reducing some of that repetition? And so one way you could do it is put them into an object. So for example, that might be animals equals cow, sheep, armadillo. Or I could have done just define them that way. So I could have done const animals is all of these. These are the exact same thing because each of these evaluates to an object, or I can just write the objects in place. Either way. So if I do that, I have this array of objects, but what I can't do that. Who can tell me why?
Why not?
Who can tell me why I can't do that?
Because it's
One
not a
of-
for each.
That's part of it.
Do you need
Wanna
to map
just-
it first? Sorry.
So yeah, I could map it, pull the age out of all of them. I could just do for each and call print age on each one. Other thoughts?
Animals.
No, the index?
Oh yeah, I could do that by index. That'll work. I'm back at the same amount of repetition that I had before, but I could do that. Let's take a look at this more.
Sorry, and this is just important. I can't wrap my head around this stuff.
Nope, this is huge, and a lot of you are making this mistake. Cool, so back to expressions. So we stored this value in this variable. When we call this function with this animals variable, that's going to evaluate to this array of objects that we have. That means we can swap that out for this parameter here. So then when we call console log, some animal is this array of objects. And so it's going to look for an age property on the array. The array doesn't have an age property.
Oh, it's an object.
An array is an object, but it's not each one of these objects.
So how would you get, like, if you're wanting the age on all the animals, how would
Sure.
you get that?
Great question.
You
Actually,
Would you do
before
animals
somebody
dot age?
answers it, before you answer it, I'm going to put this in inbox, and I want to see what solutions you guys come up with. There's a couple different ways we could do it. Any of them are fine. What is the code to... Let me get that back up. What is the code to... Come on. Print all the ages of the animals. Questions in inbox. What is the code to print all of the animals? You don't need to rewrite the animals array or anything. But that doesn't work. Need a couple more. Three more. All right, I don't know where the other three are, but let's talk about it. One that I'm seeing a lot. Print age. Animals dot age. So let's take a look at what that would be. If we evaluate animals dot age, animals is this whole array. So we're looking for the dot age property of this array. Doesn't have one. Each object inside the array has an age property. Animals doesn't, though. That's what animals.age means. Take the array, look up the age property on it. Not each age property. Another one that I saw quite a bit was animals.map animal animal.age. So what that does is it takes this function and calls it on every animal in the animals array. So it's going to take in the cow, and it's going to return cow.age. That's 23. So it's going to do that with each one of them and turn that into an array of age numbers. So if we did that, that's going to evaluate to 23, 23, 23. Now, it evaluates to that. Doesn't actually do anything with it, though. And the question was, what is the code to print all the ages of the animals? Not write code that evaluates to all the ages of the animals. That's what this would be. We could chain off of that. So if we did something like dot map and then for each age, we could call print age and pass in the age. Who can spot the problem with that?
Wouldn't it be undefined?
It would. Why?
Because it's calling to the function of print age, and that's going to have us run into our previous issue.
Not quite. It's similar to the issue that we had before, but not exactly the same.
Because it would be in the function, like inside that function already? It's calling itself?
It's not inside the function. We're replacing this thing that I crossed out with whatever. So we're mapping over the animal objects. We're pulling out their ages. This gives us an array of these numbers. For each one of those numbers, we take it and pass it into print age. So we call print age with 23, then we call print age with 23, then we call print age with 23. What's the problem with that? Take a look at print age.
Is it because the parameter for print age is some animal as opposed to the actual age?
Ding, 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 ding. If this were age and it just printed the age, not a problem. But it is specifically looking for an object that has an age property. So if I map out that age, now I'm passing a number in here. Well, numbers don't have .age properties.
So if underneath that you put return result and then you put in the result as the parameter, would that work?
So where would the return go?
Under the for each. If you were to return after that, return as result and just put in the parameter of result.
What is result?
The mapping of the for each. Like, I don't know. Just a shot in the dark.
So
I thought it would have the ages for each one, and then that would be the result. But
so, okay, here's the thing this is the thing that is difficult about applicative programming. Let's look at this a little bit more abstractly. So animals.map takes in a transform function. What this evaluates to is a new array where this function got called on every item in the array and gave me a new array with whatever happened. So in this case, I had an array of objects. This function gets called on every element in that array, and then whatever is returned from this. Because remember, on a one-line arrow function, this is the return statement, is animal.age. This is the return statement, even though we don't really return out of for eaches. So we take the cow object, it gets passed into this function. I could have also, it doesn't have to be an arrow function. Like I could have written that a few different ways. I could have written that as animals.map animal.age, the exact same thing, would be that, or that, that's the same thing. Or if I did the function separately, then I could pass that function into map. All of these are the exact same thing. So there is no result. Unless we save it, we could do that. So like what we were looking at over here was just chaining the for each off. We can do that because arrays have for each methods, and this expression evaluates to an array. Arrays can be for each, so we can chain these. We could also, so we could do like for each age. So like that's not going to work, but we can do that. Or we could have done ages is that, and then done ages dot for each. Those are the same thing. That versus that, identical.
I think where we get confused with the result is that's what we're using with API. When we're doing our
Yeah, that's just
website.
a property of an object. That's not anything special.
Okay.
It's because that API called some key result. Could have also called it fart. Could have also called it dog. All of like there's nothing magical about that.
Oh, okay. Can you give us another example?
Yeah, let's get through this one first. We still haven't
Okay.
solved it yet.
Sorry.
So if the problem with mapping out the age and then for eaching over it is that we're passing in a number and numbers don't have a dot age property, what is the solution?
Would you need braces to put them, or square brackets to put them, because it's in an object? And
Age isn't an object. Age is a number.
okay.
Can we?
That's the okay sound. That means I didn't understand what we just said. So let's dig in. Why? When we mapped over this, we took an array of objects and turned it into an array of numbers. That means that the thing that we're eaching over is the array of numbers. That means each one of these is a number. That's a number. That's a number. That's a number. That's a number. But the problem is numbers don't have an age property. The animal object
That's
does.
where I'm losing you. What do you mean a number does not have an age property? The age is a number.
Right. So it doesn't have a dot age. It is the dot age.
It is the dot age. Gotcha.
So
Okay.
like if I do 23, cool, that's a value. If I do 23 dot age, has no clue what that is. If I do animal, and the animal has an age property, I can animal dot age. I could save that age in a variable. I can't do animal age dot age because numbers don't have age properties, and animal age is a number. The object, all day long. The number, not so much.
Okay, that makes more sense now. Thank
Good.
you.
So for solving the problem, could we just take the array
Mhm.
of animals and do a for each over it?
Yes.
So
Now
it
we're
would
on
be
track.
animals
Yep.
dot for each.
Yes.
And now we're going to say in our parentheses for each animal,
Yes.
and we can fat arrow this. Console.log.
Ooh, we
That's
want to
going to
use the
be,
function that we have.
oh, so that would be print age, I think is what it's called.
Yep.
And then in the parameter, or this is going to be the actual value,
Yes.
that would be where we can put animal.age.
All right, so let's take a look at what happens if we do that. I'm going to make that a different color. All right, so if I do that, let's follow the logic there. Oops. Get all this out of the way. All right, so if I do that, I take my array of objects, I each over them. For each one of the objects, so like the cow, I'm going to call the print age function with cow.age. What's the problem?
There's no object called cow
No, I didn't use cow anywhere in here.
or whatever, like sheep or something.
This is actually the exact same problem that we just had.
Mm-hmm.
What was the problem that we just had?
That it's
The age
looking
property.
for, yeah.
Oh, sorry, what was that?
The age property.
The age property. All right, so what does animal.age evaluate to? It's an expression.
Undefined.
No. Each animal has an
23.
age property.
It comes out to 23 for an actual number.
Right. So then I'm passing 23 into print age.
Which still doesn't work because it's not going to accept a number as
23 doesn't
value.
have an age property. I need to pass something into print age that has an age property. So what's that?
Shouldn't it be animals.age.forEach?
Ooh,
Or is that
good question. So if I do animals.age, what does animals evaluate to?
An array.
An array. Arrays don't have .age properties.
So maybe instead, if we focus on this for each that we have printed out here, if we can take a look at just the variable for the print age, if we can change that from animal.age.
To what?
Animal.
So let's take a look at what happens there. Animals is this array. Arrays have a for each method. So for each item in the array, we're going to call each item animal, which is like the cow or the sheep or the armadillo. Then we're going to call the print age function with each of those animals. So then that goes over here. This is going to be cow, and then it's going to be sheep, and then it's going to be armadillo, like the objects, not the strings. And then I'm going to console log this cow object's age property. Oh, well, it does have one of those. And then I'm going to go to the sheep object. That goes into this function. Oh, the sheep object has a .age property. So that's 23. And then it's going to take in the armadillo object. And oh, the armadillo object has a .age property. And so then it's going to log 23, 23, 23. And that's our solution.
So does it actually, like, there's not, the object itself isn't called the armadillo object, right?
Right.
It's just doing it because it's a, for each of those objects, it's finding whatever the age property is in that object. You're just saying every part of the array that was returned, right?
Yes.
Look for an age property within those pieces of the for each.
Bing, bing, bing. So this like animal, that's a placeholder. Whatever I want to call each of these, because I could have just called those F and then print age F. That's the exact same code. I need some placeholder for each of the individual values. Conventionally, that's singular, that's plural. Makes it easier to keep track of what's happening. The problem that I'm seeing in like the reasoning is we're doing a little bit too much interpretation. You need to be super literal about this. Passing animals into that is exactly like taking all of this and just copy pasting it in. That's what it means to pass animals in. We said that animals was equal to that array. So that's what's happening there. And since that's the parameter, if I pass this whole object or this whole array in like this, that's basically like saying const some animal equals whatever that thing was. And so if I try to log some animal.age, it's the entire array. That doesn't have a .age property. Each of the things inside of it do. So I need to loop through that to log all of those. Now conversely, if I do animals.forEach animal console log animal, or sorry, not console log animal, print age, this for each, so this function here, this is like I'm saying some animal equals this object. Okay, well, some animal has an age property. All right, well, that's the first iteration. For each calls it on that first item, then it moves on to the next one. So this becomes that. And then the third one. When you're working through these problems, substitute out the variables for the things that the variables represent. That's how you're going to untrip yourself. All right, let's do a couple more examples of this. I have an array of objects. Actually, no, I'm going to do an array of numbers. Let's see. Got it. Do an array of names. Just the strings. Okay, so I got some names. I have a function that called uppercase. and it takes in a string, and it returns that string to uppercase. So in inbox, I want you to write the code that prints each of the names uppercased. All right, questions in inbox. All right, let's start taking a look at some of these. All right, for this one, we take names. Let's imagine that we evaluate names. Names just is a shortcut for this big array up here. Arrays have for each methods. Doing good so far. Each name, so that's going to be the string Kyle the first time. Then it's going to be the string Sarah. Then it's going to be the string Matt. Then it's going to be the string Bryce. It gets passed into uppercase. Cool, good so far. So that string name, this parameter is going to be Kyle. Kyle dot to uppercase is going to be Kyle. And then that gets returned out of this function. So now we're returning capital Kyle, capital Sarah, capital Matt, capital Bryce, and then what? What's it missing?
Oh, wait to
Something.
look to it.
Console log.
Yeah, it's not printing anything.
Okay.
So now here's the rub. Let's say I try to fix it like this. Oh, okay. So now this is an uppercased name. Just console log it. That won't work. Who can tell me why?
We haven't defined the variable
Which variable?
for uppercase name.
Okay, so this is this is part of the thing that I think is confusing people. This is the definition. This whole thing is a function. Exactly like this. All of that is a function. Uppercase name is what we are calling the thing. It could be anything. And it's going to be the result of whatever this expression evaluates to. And it turns out that's the problem. What does this evaluate to?
That evaluates to a string of uppercased names.
Does it? What does for each evaluate to?
Nothing.
Nothing. For each doesn't take return values. For each is for doing an action repeatedly. It doesn't transform anything.
Oh, so were we supposed to use map instead of for each for this one?
That works. Names evaluates to the array. Arrays have a map method. And we call that the two things together are going to evaluate to an array of uppercase names. Arrays have for each methods. So then for each item in the array, we console log it. That works. Let's look at some of the other ones. Okay, so if I do this, let's do the evaluation. Names is this array of strings. So if I pass this array of strings into uppercase, okay? So then this becomes the names array of strings, which means that this is the array of strings. Arrays don't have uppercase methods. So that throws an error. Let's take a look at this one. So we got to watch our capitalization on this. So names evaluates to that array of strings. That's cool. Arrays of strings have a for each method. This takes in a function. Uh-oh. We got a syntax problem. So we fix that, and then we return name dot to uppercase. All right, well, we've replicated the behavior of this, but that's not what we wanted to do. What we wanted to do was use this method. So we could have done like uppercase name, pass that into the function, but who can tell me what the problem here is?
We're not printing it.
We're not printing it. That's number one. And number two,
For each doesn't evaluate to anything.
for each doesn't evaluate to anything, so doesn't have a return statement. Now, if I do this, that works.
Why just the word console, not instead of console.log?
Because I'm going too fast.
Gotcha. So it is supposed to be the
Yes.
console.log.
Correct.
Okay.
All right, I think we located like the big disconnect. So we're going to keep hanging out here for a bit. Ask me more questions about it.
I definitely need more practice.
You all do. So let's do it.
So it's not simply just what does the function do. You got to see, like, is it in a condition for the function to work in the first
Yes.
place?
Yes.
So you got to set it up for the function to even be able to work.
Yes. And that's a really good way to practice working backward. So if the thing is, write the code that prints each of the names uppercased. Okay, so I have this uppercase function here. Working backwards, I need a string. What I have is an array. How can I get all of the strings out of the array? All right, well, I could do something like uppercase names at 0. Even console log that. That's one way to do it. But anytime you see something like that, alarm bells should go off in your head. That is a lot of repetition. So I could do something like this, or like this. Eaching through those, that's going to give me access to every item in the array. And that's the string. Now that I have the string, I can do what I need to do. But that's the magic thing that's happening there. It's giving me access to each item, not the entire array.
Kyle, the one that I had thrown up, I think it would have a syntax error. Could we throw it up and critique it a little?
Totally. It actually looked okay to me, but we'll see. No, that's fine. It's a little terse. And so what I mean by that is we're not doing any like saving stuff in variables. We're not breaking it into multiple steps. And so like if I saw this on a code review, I would hesitate and go, well, it's pretty short. Is it too short? Would it be easier to read if it looked like that?
Probably.
Because, to be clear, this and this are the exact same code. But this is kind of jamming it all into one line. I don't know. I could get talked into it. But yeah, syntactically, that's fine.
Is there an extra closing parenthesis on the end of that?
Oh. Yeah, maybe that's a problem. Nope. Maybe? Nope. You can see when I highlight them,
Oh,
it shows
there we
you
go. Okay.
which ones they match. I think you can make a pretty good case that that's easier to read than this is, but they're the same code.
Probably.
So does that make all three of these examples then the same code? Like even the one that's using the map that's still getting the same result, just going about it a longer way?
Yep. So yeah, this one is breaking it into two steps. One where we uppercase the names and one where we print them. This does it all in one go. They do the exact same thing though. More questions about this?
Can we do one more to really solidify it in? Because I think I could use it. If that's cool.
One more? How about we do like three more? Because
Yes, please.
I think we all
Yeah,
need
Three
more.
let's
more,
do
10
that.
more, whatever you want to do. I'm down.
Hell yeah.
Let's do this all day.
I need it too, so I'm right with you, Bryce.
We're gonna keep doing this until folks are feeling comfortable with it. All right, let's do another one. Let's do. Let's do one where I've got it. So I'm going to have an array of numbers and then we're going to, and then we have a function that like is over 21. It takes in an age. Oops, these are ages. It's an array. Arrays are plural. This takes in an age and returns whether or not the age is greater than 21. Or I'll say greater than or equal to. All right, so I would like you to write the code that prints each of the age verifications. Go for it. Sean. Nice. Good job. Loving these responses. Think we're starting to put some stuff together.
Until you see mine coming in.
Thinking the same thing.
Same here.
Same here.
All right, let's start looking at some of these. Most of these are either right or pretty darn close. So let's take a look at this one. So ages.forEach age. So ages is this whole array. Arrays have for each methods. This is the function we're going to call on every single item in here. We're using our good plural to singular. And then we're console logging the result of passing each age into the is over 21. So that's going to be 14, which makes that 14, which makes that 14, which makes this whole expression false. So that means this evaluates to false. So that means that console logs false. And it's going to do that for each one of these. So false, true, true, false. Well done. Let's look at another one.
Can we hang on this one for a second?
Yeah, totally.
Because I wrote that. So how
Like five
How
of
could
you
I
wrote
have-
that, but
beautiful.
what you got?
Okay. So how could I have printed out the actual numbers instead of just the value of true or false?
Ooh, good question. Because yeah, that's just going to print false, true, true, false.
We'd have to change the function to do that, right?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
What else could I do?
Could you do an if statement, like if true, print number or print age?
Totally. So I could do something like if is over 21, like that. And then what would I console log?
Would you just would you just console log age?
Yeah, why not? So that's pretty clever. So we go through each age. If 14 is over 21. So this expression evaluates to false, which means that this block doesn't run. Cool. Next. 55. Passing 55 into this function evaluates to true. That means this block does run. So then we're console logging 55. Then the next one is 43. So 43 gets passed into this function. This function evaluates to true. That means that this block runs, which means that we console log 43. Then the last one, 17. So 17, when we pass it into that function, that becomes 17. That becomes 17. This expression evaluates to false. That means that this evaluates to false. So this block doesn't run. So doing this, come on. Doing this prints 55 and 43. This is a great way to demonstrate that these things need to be the same, but it doesn't actually matter what they're called. And they don't need to be the same thing as they're called in the parameter over here. So actually, I want to link that up. So some things that are all the same. When this starts iterating, 14 becomes that, becomes that, becomes that, becomes that. That first iteration, everything that's underlined in yellow is the same thing. 14, 14, 14, 14.
That's something that's always kind of confused me. It seems like there was like a jump in logic where nothing was defined, but it's just that it's like it gets flattened out, and whatever the product of it is
Yes.
what that new thing is.
This function, this is these are like placeholders. You can think of this like a template. These are placeholders. We can call them anything we want. They get replaced with the actual values when we call the function.
And so if we're going to use this particular example, but we still want to do what AMP was suggesting and what Bryce had walked us through, could we on line 13 use some kind of coercion to turn those true-false statements into numbers rather than going through an if statement?
No. What we could do is, and somebody actually submitted this, we could use a filter to get rid of everything that isn't over 21 and then just print everything in the list. So if we go through this list and filter out everything, everyone that isn't over 21, then we end up with a 2-item array, and then we can just print everything in that without having to do an if statement. That's legit.
Okay.
I'll walk through that in a sec. Any other questions about how we map, that's maybe not the best choice of words, how we connect this value to this value to this value to this value to this value? And you can think of a function like Mad Libs almost, where all this stuff is already preset, and the function is just waiting for us to give it actual values. But they could be anything. Some function. Some promise. It's a template. And then we're filling out the template with the actual things. So is over 21, that's the template. We do it with that value. We do it with the next value. We do it with the next value. So it's the reason that these variable names don't have to match up. They're only defined for the template. The thing that is calling the function has no idea what this stuff is called on the inside, and it doesn't matter. It's just another example of black boxing. I gave the black box a number, and what I want out of it is a Boolean. How it does that, who gives a shit? Outside the box, we don't care. That's why these variable names can be whatever you want. And they don't have to match these. Questions about any of these ideas? Here's another one. Okay, so our first problem here is that this is called age. The ages. But after that, yeah, that's legit. We take an array of ages, that's these things here, and then we map over it. So that transforms it into an array of Booleans. And then for every item in that array of Booleans, each Boolean represents whether the person is over 21. And then we log that. So that prints false, true, true, false. That works. Let's take a look at this one. So minor syntax problem. We didn't close this. So I'm console logging. There's a couple things. Maps always, 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 always need to return something. Just like for eaches never, never, never need to return something. So that makes map not the right one to use for this. Map's for a transformation. So if I want to do something like this, where I'm transforming every item in the array, that's legit. Otherwise, this should be a for each. All right, for each age, I want a console log is over 21. And then zoinks, we got an expression. So that expression, what does that evaluate to? The first time, let's say.
Is it just saying that the age is greater than or equal to 21?
Yep. So what is that about? That's an expression. What does it evaluate to?
True or false?
Yep. So what does it evaluate to for 14?
False.
Cool. So that means our is over 21 function gets false passed in. So that becomes false. That means this is false. Is false greater than or equal to 21? Well, that expression doesn't make any sense.
Wouldn't that mean 0?
Yeah, so it would
No.
consider it 0, maybe, but like
It would be
that's
wrong.
going to be
yeah.
if the browser coerces it to a number,
Yeah,
which it
I
probably
know.
will. Yeah, it's probably going to consider false 0. And so that's the tricky thing is you'll feel like it's working because you get back a real value, but that's where the logic breakdown happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if it did that, if it resolved it to a 0, would it just be false, 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 false? Would be
Yes.
Okay.
Good catch. Oh, no.
It would
Yeah,
be
yeah.
true on some of them,
No,
but
so
it's
so
wrong.
Here's what would happen. So 55 is greater than or equal to 21. Well, that's true. So then this becomes true, and that becomes true. So then the expression is true is greater than or equal to 21. So if it coerces that into a number, that's going to coerce to 1. 1 is not greater than or equal to 21. So that entire thing ends up evaluating to false.
Yeah, so every single one would be false.
Exactly.
It would either be 0s or 1s.
Exactly. But if
Are we sure we resolved to that, or would it try to put true or false in there?
I don't know. And if
Okay.
I put this 1 in here, that one would print out true because 1 is greater than or equal to, or no, what would it be? No, I guess it would always be false because 0
Just
or 1
because-
can never be greater than or equal to 21.
Just because the car isn't totaled doesn't mean it isn't wrecked. That's the wrong
Yes.
way to do it. That was
Yeah.
my wonderful example.
Love
I'll own
it.
that one.
Great. All right, let's look at a couple more. So this one. All right, we got syntax problems. Let's try fixing that a little bit.
I was overcompensating for the last time.
All right, so first problem is I've got too many closing parentheses. So that makes that problem go away. Next problem is these parentheses aren't doing anything. And then the next problem is that anytime you have a condition, that needs to be wrapped in parentheses. But who can tell me what the problem with that expression is?
There's nothing
does-
for it to compare.
Nothing to compare. So if I do that, if age is greater than or equal to 21, put some braces on that. Okay, so that's getting closer. Oh, but we have another syntax problem.
And in the console log, the is over 21 should be in quotation marks as a string statement saying, yes, this is over 21.
Okay,
That was
so-
my thought process.
All right, so a couple things. One, the syntax on this is meaningless. That's why my stuff is going ape. So this, that would be something, except is over 21 doesn't print anything, so it wouldn't, like this code wouldn't do anything. But we're kind of mixing and matching syntaxes here, where you have that function call and then you're attaching a block to it. So that's not how that works. If I get rid of this, now this is like correct syntax. So ages is the array of numbers for each one of them. So the first one was 14. if 14 is greater than or equal to 21, well, it's not. So this block doesn't execute. 55. So 55, if 55 is greater than or equal to 21, well, it is, so the block does execute. And then I console log is over 21. So what is over 21?
It was supposed to be a string. I forgot the quotation marks.
Okay, so if I do that, what happens is the string is over 21 gets printed twice.
Why twice?
Because 55 and 43 are both over 21.
Right. That's what I was thinking would happen. But it wouldn't print anything on for 14 and 17 because I didn't have an else statement for those.
Right. But the worst thing is that we remade the logic for this function. We already have that.
Oh.
That's what this is. So if I want to find out if an age is over 21, I can do is over 21, pass the age in, like that.
Gotcha.
And then this logs the string is over 21, but there's nothing special about, like, that's the name of the function. But I could also print like, just like is over 21 age. I could do that. I could save it in a variable first. Is of age equals is over 21. And then use that in both of these conditions, or that and that. That'll do it. Or, what happens if I do that? What's it going to console log?
Undefined.
Nope, is over 21 is absolutely defined. It's defined on line 8.
Would it print the number, the age, or just true or false?
It would print the function itself, wouldn't it?
Ding, ding,
Yeah.
ding, ding, ding. It'll print the definition of that function. Like, it'll print all of this.
Including function?
It'll print the word function. The
word
word is
function.
over 21 with a paren, and then the word age, and then another paren.
Oh.
It's going to print the
Interesting.
object.
Is
Well,
it
that's not
because
what I meant.
is it because the is over 21 is like you're not calling the function, you're just listing it. You're saying,
Yes.
hey, this is the function. Because you would need like the parentheses to call it.
Bingo.
Right.
Okay.
So if I invoke it, that's different. Now it's going to be equal to whatever this return statement is. If I pass that into age, actually, if I leave it just like that, so I'm not putting anything into is over 21. So that means that's undefined, which means that that's undefined. Is undefined greater than or equal to 21? Well, if it tries to coerce that into a Boolean, that's false. So then that means that function call evaluates to false. That's the function call, and so it's going to console log false. Every time.
On all 4 of them.
On all 4 of them.
Just like the other example.
Bingo. If I pass age in, false, true, true, false.
Yeah, I don't have a grasp on this.
We got to practice more. Let's look at one more. Let's look at one of these ones with a filter. Okay, so for this one, ages. Ages evaluates to an array. Arrays have filter methods. We're good to go. So this is going to be 14. We're going to pass 14 into is over 21. That's false. The way that filter works is if this function call evaluates to false, it takes it out of the array. And if it evaluates to true, it keeps it in the array. So what this is going to do is go 14, false, kick it out. And then it's going to go 55, true, keep it. And then it's going to go 43, true, keep it. Let's do 17. False. Get rid of it. So then age verification is going to be an array with the ages that matched. So that'll be 55 and 43. So if I log that, that's fine. It'll log the array with 55 and 43. But really, what I probably want to do is do that in an each. So it would be like age verification dot for each. And also, age verification is not like a killer name for that. So since that's what we're getting back, this would have been like ages over 21. So this would be ages over 21. And this would be for each age over 21. Plural, singular.
Real quick, in this example, with the dot filter kicking the other thing, it doesn't kick it out of the original array, right? It just makes a new array?
Bingo. Ages is completely unchanged. Ages over
Okay.
21 is a new array based on the old array. That works. That's a little bit better than this one.
So what was the intention? Was to get back the trues and false? Was it to get back all
It
of
was
the
to get back the
ages?
trues and falses.
Okay.
But this is a good opportunity to talk about what filter does. To go back to how would I get something other than just the true and false, like we were talking about up here, if I want to see the age and then I want to see if it's true or false. Could have done that. Could have made this a template string. So maybe that's like, come on. Something like age is over 21 is over 21 age. Could have done that.
Wait, you lost me on that. I'm sorry. So with the template string added in, that's going to tell us if it's true or false, and also print the age. But right?
So this is an expression.
Yep.
So let's see what it would evaluate to. For each age, we get 14 is over 21. False. So this block never runs. Next one's 55. So 55 is over. So that's true. So this block does execute. So it's going to log whatever this evaluates to. So what that evaluates to is age 55 is over 21 true. Like it'll end up looking like this.
That's different. Okay. Thank you.
Very welcome.
That makes total sense.
Yeah, doesn't it?
Because like you're like from the top, like you're accessing the array, and then you're saying for each age, if the function, which is return age over greater than or equal to 21, so if that age is in fact true, I want you to console.log age whatever is over 21, and then just you're interpolating is over 21 the age, which is true. The value is
Completely
true.
accurate, and you used all the vocab words right. Way to go!
Makes sense.
There's so many different ways to do the same things.
So many different ways to do the same thing. That's a feature of JavaScript. Not every language is like that. Like Python is the exact opposite. Python, and that's a design goal of the language. With Python, they were trying to have exactly one right way to do everything. JavaScript and Ruby, far opposite. With Ruby, they were like, we want to give you as many different ways as possible to do the same thing. so that you can write in whatever style like feels good to you. And so now what's funny about that is that that was the design goal of the language. Everybody who writes Ruby does it the exact same way. There's like a pretty strong style guide for writing Ruby that every Ruby dev I know follows. JavaScript is a chameleon language. So if you're coming from Java, it'll seem kind of familiar. If you're coming from Python, it'll seem kind of familiar. If you're coming from Ruby, it'll seem kind of familiar. If you're coming from Scala, it'll seem kind of familiar. None of those languages are similar at all. And yet, all of those developers would look at JavaScript and go, oh, I know how that works. And that's what's cool about it, is that you can write in any fucking style in JavaScript. The trade-off for that is that there ends up being a lot of different ways to do something. You can do something in a procedural style. You can do it in a functional style. You can do it in an object-oriented style. All of those are legit ways to write it. And so people from all of those different backgrounds come to JavaScript and go, oh, it's an object-oriented language. It's not. Oh, it's a functional language. It's not. Oh, it's a procedural language. It's not. It's all of those things. And so everybody ends up feeling like they're at home.
Is Ruby and Ruby on Rails kind of like Java and JavaScript, or is it more aligned with one another?
So they solve different problems. I don't know if we've actually explicitly talked about this. JavaScript is the only language that runs in browsers, period, the end. There is no other language that you can use to write like web apps. Servers, the backends of web apps, those can be written in literally any language. C, Python, Scala, Java, you name it, including JavaScript. You can also write servers with JavaScript. So Rails is a server framework. It's different than the language. Ruby is the programming language. Rails is a framework based around that language that's specifically for writing web servers. And it's pretty different from JavaScript. It's really similar to Java. It's really like Java with half the syntax, and like is a lot easier to read, I think. But yeah, there's the comparison.
So is Apache a framework?
Oh, great question. Apache is not a language. It's not a framework. Like Apache is a foundation. They make a product called Apache Server that is an HTTP server. So what that ends up looking like is your browser makes an HTTP request to your Rails server. Or Express, or Django. All of these are server frameworks. Apache Server is the thing that listens for the HTTP request and sends it to the framework. Its only job is like to listen for incoming HTTP requests and then forward those requests to the right process or file or whatever in your server framework. And Apache is a pretty popular one, but it's got competitors. Probably the biggest one is this, which is not pronounced Nginx. That's what I thought it was. Oh man, you're gonna die. Nginx is how that's pronounced. And then if you're doing Express, you actually don't use either of these. It has its own server built in. That's where that fits into the ecosystem. Cool. Let's do another one. Let's do one based on this one. Actually, scratch that. Let's take a break. A quicker one. let's get back at 250. Been going for a little while. 250. See you then.
Much better.
Good.
Thank you.
I'm glad.